What is good, people? Welcome back to another video on 8 Count. In today's video we have another round of UFC fight picks, this time for UFC 88, which is going down this weekend. It marks the return of Henry Cejudo as he takes on Aljamain Sterling for the UFC bantamweight title. As always, please leave your picks in the comment section down below, and if you do enjoy today's video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. We're going to kick things off with the main event, Aljamain Sterling taking on Henry Cejudo. I think this is a huge fight in terms of the landscape of the bantamweight division and potentially even the featherweight division. I think both men have talked about their interest in taking on Alexander Volkanovski. Whether they're serious about those claims, I'm not too sure. But in terms of this fight, it's a very intriguing matchup. For me, I think Aljamain should be the favourite. I think Henry Cejudo coming in after 3 years layoff is... it's kind of a big test for him to go up against Aljamain Sterling. And when looking at the tail of the tape, I think a lot of things are in the favour of Aljamain Sterling. In terms of Aljo's recent performances, in terms of a champion, he doesn't really have that resume which super sticks out to me. I think the Dillashaw fight, the injury to Dillashaw really wasn't able to give him the respect which he deserved from that fight. And I think the same with the Yan performances. I think the second fight was super close. I did give the fight to him, but I think it could have gone either way. And the way the first one played out, it's kind of had this narrative go against Aljamain. But I think looking throughout his career, he has had big victories, whether that come against, someone like a Sandhagen or a Munoz. I think he's proven that he is one of the best 135-pounders in the game right now. But maybe doesn't have the respect on his name, which maybe he deserves. In terms of Henry Cejudo, it's a huge fight coming back after a 3-year layoff. In terms of his resume, I think it's the complete opposite. The fight against Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, the second one, for me, I actually thought TJ won that fight, but I think you got to give credit to Cejudo. The changes he was able to make to his game plan going into that one gave him a really sort of strong argument in that fight. After that fight, he took out Dillashaw, Moraes, and Dominic Cruz. And for me, I think he's the more likely to win this fight coming back. I do think Sterling should be the favourite, especially because of that 3-year layoff. But for me, I like Cejudo in this fight. I think for Sterling, his best odds to win are keeping on the outside against someone like a Henry Cejudo. I think his best weapons are going to be those sort of funky kicks that he throws. I think his ability to kick to punch is actually a really interesting factor in this fight. A lot of guys like to punch to kick, but not Sterling. He's very capable of throwing punches after, letting off one of his kicks. I think the teeps are going to be important in establishing range. And I think using that sort of reach advantage that he's got on the outside, throwing some strikes, it's going to be important to, get the respect of Henry Cejudo early, showing him that you can hurt him on the feet. And when it comes to the takedown sort of game, for Aljamain, I don't think there's any point in looking for your traditional double leg or anything like that. I think his best option in this fight is creating some sort of, a position where he can get back exposure, whether that comes in a scramble or him shooting on a single leg and coming out of it. I'm not too sure, but I think that's his best options. For Cejudo, I think it's pretty much the opposite. He's got to get onto the inside at times, let his hands go. I think what we've seen throughout his career, his striking has gotten better and better every fight, since he ended up going with that sort of karate style, which allowed him to dictate range a little bit better. I think that's actually improved his style a lot. I think his hands are going to be dangerous in this fight for someone like Aljamain Sterling, who tends to keep his chin up in the air. I think that's definitely a vulnerability for him. I think if Cejudo can get this fight to the ground, he's got to be wary of the scrambles of Sterling, but I do think he's definitely got an edge there, especially with the top game and the pressure which he comes with it. I'm going to go with a Henry Cejudo decision in this fight, although I think there are going to be moments for Sterling which can cause trouble. I think he might end up getting on the back in one of these rounds, and we're going to have to see Cejudo really come, out of the other side of it. And I think it's going to be a great fight. I'm looking forward to this one. In terms of the co-main event, though, guys, my pick there was Cejudo, by the way, if you didn't get it. But the co-main event is it's a big fight at welterweight. I wasn't sure if this one was going to happen because of the way everything was going down. Ramadan for Bilal Muhammad, I wasn't sure if he was really going to be capable of making the weight. But he's taking on Gilbert Burns, and which is a real interesting matchup. It feels like Gilbert Burns fought 2 days ago. Obviously, he fought on the Miami card where he was able to retire Jorge Masvidal. For me, Gilbert Burns is kind of upped his brand value in some ways. Ever since that Chimaev fight, he's always a dangerous guy. You know, looking at the fight where he came out on the other side against someone like Kamaru Usman, it was a difficult moment for him, but coming out of that fight, he's been able to really boost his star power without even putting on too many like high like level fights. I think the Chimaev fight alone really got him a lot of fans, and you know, coming into this fight, I think he's probably the favourites on the fan side. In terms of his matchups which he's gone through since the Chimaev loss, it was a very impressive victory against Magny, and the Masvidal fight, from in my opinion, he didn't take too many risks, but he was able to get the job done in a very professional way. This fight, I think, is a lot trickier than the Magny and Masvidal fight. I think in Bilal Muhammad, he has a really tough opponent who has shown so many improvements since he first hit the UFC. Since the, I think, Douglas Lima fight, I think he's been on a bit of a roll. Obviously, he had the Edwards fight, which was an unfortunate sort of eye poke, which ended the fight in a very scary way. But since then, the win over Maya, Thompson, the Luque win, and then Sean Brady in October of last year, super impressive sort of showcase of what he's capable of. And I think he's the favourite going into this fight. I don't know how the odds have it right now. I think I'd guess that Gilbert Burns is the likely favourite. But in my opinion, I think it should be Bilal Muhammad. I'm going to pick him in this fight. I think that his forward pressure is going to cause problems for Gilbert Burns. I think he can work the gas tank of Burns the later this fight goes. I think his ability to stop takedowns is going to be important. I think his wrestling has been pretty decent inside the UFC. And I think where he's going to get the job done here is getting into boxing range and getting the better of someone like Gilbert Burns. I think his striking is very underrated. And overall, I think he's going on a tear. I think he deserves a title shot, especially if he wins this fight. He needs that title shot. I'm going to go with Bilal Muhammad to get a win here by decision. The next fight we have is Jessica Andrade versus Xiaonan Yan. For me, I'm going to go with Jessica Andrade. I think she's a fighter who's just got that bit more experience inside of the UFC octagon when it comes to big fights. I think Yan has had some okay performances, the win over Mackenzie Dern, but I think you look at some of the other fights she's been in, she hasn't impressed me too much. I know Andrade is coming in off a defeat to Erin Blanchfield, which would have hurt for sure, because you know, Blanchfield, the way she came into that fight as the kind of upstar, you know, the young fighter, I think now it's time for Andrade to really put a foot on the gas, back down to strawweight now. I think that is the right sort of weight class for her. I think there, the size disadvantage isn't too big, and she's able to put her power to work. I think she's going to get a finish in this fight. I'm going to go for a round 2 TKO finish for Jessica Andrade. In the other fight, we have Movsar Evelev taking on Bryce Mitchell. For me, this is an interesting matchup. I do agree with Evelev being the favourite. I think he's a guy who's just very well-rounded. I think his wrestling ability is strong, and I think that's going to be one of the sort of key attributes in this fight. I think Bryce Mitchell's going to want to take it to the ground. And I think if he can stop Bryce from getting, you know, top control, I think he has a very good chance of winning this fight. I'm going to go with Evelev. It would be nice to see Bryce Mitchell get back in the win column, but I just don't think it's coming in this fight. I'm going to go with Evelev, a victory. I think it's probably either a decision later on in the fight, you know, maybe a finish later on in the fight, either round 2 or round 3, or it's going to be a decision for Movsar Evelev. I guess you could say the first fight on the main card is the return of Kron Gracie as he takes on Charles Jourdain. I think this is an interesting fight. Gracie's been away for quite some time now. His last fight was in October of 2019 against Cub Swanson. It definitely didn't go his way. He got a bit of a beating in that fight, to be fair. And he's coming back against an all-action sort of fighter. I think Charles Jourdain is a special fighter, and his resume really doesn't speak enough for it. I think you look at the sort of fighter he is, he's gone up against competition that he's better than, and he's lost, in my opinion. I think the loss against someone like an Erosa kind of is the pinpoint I would put on it. But in terms of his style, he's a very, very good fighter, and he's a all or nothing sort of guy. He either goes out there and he puts on a performance and gets you out of there, or he's going out on the shield the majority of times. Last time out, it was the defeat against Nathaniel Wood by decision, but I wouldn't really take too much away from him in that fight. I think Nathaniel Wood is a fantastic fighter. The Burgos fight, I actually thought he had a good stake to that fight. I thought he could have won that one. The Venata fight wins, you know, he's got wins against all action guys as well, and I think this is a tough matchup for Kron Gracie coming in. In terms of Kron, I think on the feet he's a bit wild, isn't up to the levels of Charles Jourdain in my opinion at all. His best chances come on the ground, but I think Charles Jourdain is a sneaky fighter when it comes to submissions. He's got very good guillotine, and I think if he keeps this fight on the feet, once again, it's a very favourable matchup for him. I think in terms of the striking realm, he does have a slight reach disadvantage at 69 to 70 inches. But I think he's going to get the job done, and I think he's going to beat the brakes off Kron Gracie. This is one where it could go very wrong very quickly. You know, there is a potential for Kron to get, you know, some sort of back exposure early in the fight and wrap this thing up with a rear naked choke. But for me, I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain to put on a kind of a vicious beat down throughout the fight. I think we see a Kron Gracie, you know, maybe not returning to the UFC after this fight. I think this could be his last dance inside of the UFC octagon. Could be wrong. It's a very out there statement. I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain by decision. In terms of the prelims, we've actually got some really fun fights. To kick things off, as the prelim main event, we've got Drew Dober taking on Matt Frevola. For me, you know, Drew Dober's coming into this as a slight favourite, and I think that's about right. I think Dober's shown now over the course of his career he's got the capability to beat pretty much anyone, you know, especially in striking realms. You know, if he can keep it standing, his striking is very good. His gas tank is next level, and he's got some very good power in either hand, and the kicks is very strong. He's good at, you know, not just headhunting, he goes to the body as well. I'm a big fan of his. I think the reason why this fight should be closer in terms of the odds is the way Frevola fights. He's going to come out there quick. And I think that is maybe one of the hindrances you could say about Drew Dober. If you can get after him quickly, you know, not give him time to set and get, you know, used to the timing like someone like Jalen Turner did, you've got a very good chance of winning this fight. I'm going to still go with Drew Dober. I think Frevola's a very tough guy, and he's going to be hard to get out of there, though. Potentially we see Frevola get into the fight the later it goes, or maybe even early on. But I'm going to go with a Drew Dober win here, but I think it's very important to not overlook someone like the Steamroller. I think this is a great fight, and it's definitely worthy of having the top spot of the prelims. Next fight, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Devin Clark. I like this fight a lot. I think Devin Clark definitely has an ability to, you know, get the takedown here in the fight and potentially even get a finish early on. But the way I look at it is, I think Kennedy is a tough guy, and on the feet, his striking is it's not like the most perfect on the eye, but the way he uses his sort of reach advantage and stuff like that to his ability, I think he's going to give Clark problems. I think we see Clark gas out here at some point in the second round, and maybe a Kennedy finish in the third round. That's the way I see it. So I'm going to go with Kennedy here. Then we have Chaos Williams taking on Rolando Bedoya. I'm not too sure about Chaos's opponent, but it's very exciting to see the return of Chaos. I'm going to pick him. Just going out on a ledge here. I'm not too sure about his opponent. I haven't looked him up yet. It's definitely something I need to do before fight night. But the return of Chaos is something special. He's a super fun fighter. Yes, he isn't, you know, perfect in terms of his technique everywhere, but the way he fights is exciting, and I'm excited to see the return of him. The prelim opener is Marina Rodriguez versus Verna Jandarriba. I suck at her name, but the way I see this fight going is, if Marina can once again, that's kind of been the tale of some of these fights, keep it on the feet, she has a very good chance of winning this one. I think her striking is nasty, and, you know, strawweight, she's had a couple of defeats here and there, but I think she's definitely one of the top girls in the division, capable of getting a victory against most of the top contenders, and I think she's going to get the job done here. I don't think it's going to be a finish. I think we're going to see a 5-round decision. That's the way I see it going. Those are my 9 picks. Hopefully we can go 9 for 9. I know we've got some fun fights on the early prelims as well, but we're going to leave it at that. Those are my fight picks for UFC 288. As always, guys, be sure to leave yours in the comment section down below. And if you did enjoy today's video, please leave a like. We'll definitely be back, at some point. I know we got some boxing sort of picks to do. I'm really looking forward to Lomachenko versus Haney. And I definitely want to talk to you guys about Undisputed in the current state of the game. So that's another video that I've got to do in the future as well. But until then, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. UFC 288 is hopefully going to be lit. And I hope you have a great time. Until next time, peace out.